Anelle and Jihoon, Part 43. Zola helped lay out Daejun's cream-colored ceremonial wrap on the bed. She said little, but her hands were steady, her heart quieter than before. When Anelle reached for the baby's bonnet, Zola handed it to her silently, then paused. "He's going to look handsome," she said, not meeting Anelle's eyes. But that small smile at the corner of her lips said more than words could. Outside, a black car arrived without announcement. Grandfather Han stepped out dressed in a gray ceremonial robe, his posture upright, his eyes clear. In one hand, he held the family's ancestral scroll, in the other, a lacquered wooden box. Jihoon met him at the gate with a deep bow. No words were needed. The sky was clear. The child would be blessed. In the study, Grandfather laid out the ritual tools on a velvet cloth: camellia powder, inkstone, sacred scrolls. He opened the box and unrolled the parchment, his fingers steady with age and purpose. "He will be written into the book of joy," he said, "and she," he nodded once, "will stand beside him." Anelle walked forward slowly, baby Daejun in her arms. Jihoon stood beside her, his presence calm and grounding. Daejun was anointed with camellia powder and washed in juniper water. His name was whispered into the wind. Jihoon spoke his blessing as a father. Anelle followed, her voice gentle but sure. And Grandfather Han sealed the moment with a single inscription on the ancestral scroll. It was done. Under the open sky, with their son between them and history behind them, Anelle and Jihoon stood, bound not by power or tradition, but by choice. The ritual had begun as a rite. It ended as a blessing. Zola hugged Anelle with joy and praises. The cafe in Munich carried its usual warmth that late afternoon. Nihal moved through the kitchen slowly, tying her apron for what would be the last time. She adjusted the sleeves of her cardigan, her motions deliberate, half because of routine, half to keep her hands from trembling. Today marked her final shift at the cafe. In less than a month, her hospital contract would officially end, and she would relocate to Frankfurt. She had applied for another position, something steadier, quieter. The interview had been on Zoom, and to her surprise, she had gotten the job. It had been a victory, yet she hadn't truly celebrated. Every time she passed the corner booth by the window, her eyes flicked there. It was where he had once sat. Taihaho. That name she hadn't spoken aloud in weeks. She had, in frustration, blocked his number. She had even joked to her colleague that he might have been a scammer, one of those smooth-talking types who vanished after leaving just enough mystery behind. But there was a part of her that hadn't laughed. He had helped her, a stranger. And when he'd left, it wasn't just the absence that stung, it was the silence, the never knowing if it was all real or just another brief kindness that life took away before it settled. Thousands of kilometers away, Taihaho sat on the edge of his bed in Seoul. The night outside his window was thick and heavy, like the weight in his chest. Bottles lined the corner of his desk, symbols of a failed attempt to drown something that wouldn't die. He hadn't touched his work, not for days. Jihoon had noticed, of course. He always noticed. And tonight, Jihoon showed up without warning. He walked into Taihaho's apartment, said nothing at first, just opened the windows, took away the bottle, and sat down next to him like a brother would. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was familiar. Safe. "You can't drink away what you feel," Jihoon said softly. Taihaho exhaled and let his head fall back against the wall. "I'm not trying to forget," he murmured. "I just don't know how to carry it." Jihoon looked at him for a long moment, then quietly replied, "You said you'd never leave me. I won't leave you either, but I won't let you leave yourself either." They sat there in the dim room and then laughed when Jihoon found an old photo of them from college. Taihaho's hair longer, Jihoon still awkward around cameras. "I'll drive you to the airport myself if I have to," Jihoon said. "You can't have your heart in two places, Taihaho." Taihaho turned his head. "And if she doesn't want to see me again, then let her say that. But don't leave before you give her a chance to make you the king of her heart." He smiled, half laughing. I swear, no one ever told me how dangerous love is. Jihoon leaned his head back, laughing fully this time. Dangerous? When I said I'd behead the queen for Anelle, I meant it. Love isn't just dangerous, it's kingdom-breaking. They both sat still for a beat. I should call her, Taihaho finally said. With a different number, Jihoon replied without hesitation. Taihaho stared at the screen. Hands slightly trembling, he typed in her number from memory and hit dial. It rang once. Hello, came her voice. His breath caught. Hello, Nihal, he said softly. It's me, Taihaho. There was silence. Then her voice shifted. I blocked you, she said flat. Now you're calling from another number? He smiled faintly. Is that why you blocked me? Partly, she admitted. I honestly thought you were one of those online scammers. You vanished, said I should email you, and then what? Nothing? Taihaho burst out laughing before he could help it. She couldn't hold back either. You really just vanished like a ghost in a borrowed coat. I know, he said, still laughing, but you've got to admit it was a pretty nice coat. She laughed louder now, and he clung to that sound like a lifeline. I'm sorry, he said finally, his tone sobering. I didn't know what to do with how I felt. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that it would pass. But it didn't. I kept thinking about you, Nihal, even when I tried not to. The line grew quiet. How's your mom? He asked gently. There was a pause. When she answered, her voice was soft. She's still ill, she said. Thank you for asking. A pause again, then a small ping. An emoji popped up. Just a simple smile. She had unblocked him. Taihaho looked at it for a moment, closed the call, then immediately redialed with his original number. She answered this time with a teasing lilt in her voice. Is this the email guy? He laughed. Yes, it's me. I figured I should finally speak better than I type. Well, she said, you're already doing better. He smiled. Thank you for answering. There was a quiet breath between them. Do you mind a surprise? He asked. Not if it doesn't come through email, she answered, smiling. Deal, he said. Good night, Taihaho. Good night, Nihal. Taihaho stood up abruptly, his chest suddenly lighter. He dashed down the hallway. You're my king, Jihoon, he shouted, almost laughing. My hero. Jihoon grinned, not even looking up from the book he was holding. Told you so. Meanwhile in Munich, Nihal stood before the mirror in her bedroom. She brushed a few strands of hair behind her ear, then touched her cheek, unsure why she was smiling. My email, man, she whispered under her breath. And for the first time in days, she felt joy again. Jihoon stood by the window, freshly showered, sipping quietly on a cup of herbal tea. Anelle was still resting with baby Dajin beside her, both curled beneath a light blanket. For a moment, Jihoon just stood there, allowing the warmth of the tea and the peace of the morning to settle into his bones. His phone buzzed. He opened the screen out of habit. Notifications blinked past until one headline froze him. Breaking news. South Korean passenger flight crashes during landing in Munich. No survivors confirmed yet. His heart stopped. The article expanded. His heart stopped. The article expanded. Jihoon's eyes raced across the words. Flight KJ-142, traveling from Seoul to Munich, crashed upon descent just minutes before landing at Franz Josef Strauss Airport. Emergency response teams are at the scene. All 173 passengers are presumed dead at this time. The aircraft failed to respond during final approach. Jihoon's vision blurred. He could barely register the tea slipping from his grip and crashing to the floor. Flight KJ-142. That was the flight, the one Taihaho was supposed to be on. He stood frozen, his breath caught like a knot in his throat. All he could hear was the echo of Taihaho's voice from the night before, laughing, promising, calling Nihal. Jihoon didn't know if Taihaho had boarded. There had been no confirmation. He remembered Taihaho saying something about the flight being delayed, maybe changed, but nothing concrete, No details, no follow-up message, no call, nothing. He dialed once, no answer. Twice, voicemail. He sent a message, fingers trembling. Jihoon, Taihaho, please, tell me you didn't get on that flight. No reply. He refreshed the news page, watched the footage. Emergency lights, fire, smoke, wreckage just meters from the runway. The tail of the plane barely visible above the tree line. Jihoon's chest constricted. He sat down hard, unable to process it all at once. He stared at the screen, then at the open door across the room, as if Taiho might walk through it laughing, telling him it was all a mistake. But no one came. Outside, the birds continued to sing. Inside Jihoon, everything went quiet.